We have now some idea of these worlds, what these worlds are, and why Ashwapati wants to explore them, and how he goes about doing it. Those lucky people who had an opportunity of spending some time with Sri Aurobindo have left records which say that his meditation was of a different kind. There was a time when he just paced up and down in the hallway until the floor wore off, the cement floor. 14 hours in a day he walked up and down. Of course, that gave him plenty of physical exercise, but I don't think he was doing it primarily for physical exercise. That was his way of meditating. And even later on, after 1938, after the accident, when a number of people had to go to him to attend on him, for hours and hours he just sat on a sofa or in his bed with his eyes open. So this was his way of meditating, and that is how he traveled through all these worlds that he describes here, the various worlds he was talking about. Now, this is, as I said, a very fascinating journey. Unfortunately, we won't have time to look at all these levels. I thought I'll look at just one or two levels in some detail. The first world that he enters is the world of subtle matter. This is the world that you and I are aware of, is the world of gross matter. There is also a world of subtle matter. So it is that world that Ashwapati enters. And what does he find in that world? And why does he find that world inadequate? So he goes to each one of these worlds, tries to understand what exists in the world, what are the laws that operate in that world, and then asks himself whether there is anything from which he could take from that world back to this earth, which the earth requires. And then since he finds that what he needs isn't found in that world, he goes on to the next world and the next world and the next world until he goes to levels of mind beyond the present consciousness, mental consciousness that man has reached. And he doesn't find, they're all fascinating worlds, worlds of great joy and worlds of great peace. Many of our saints and rishis have visited those worlds. They live in those worlds. But as I said the other day, what the earth needs is something different. What the earth needs is a different kind of power. And that's the power that he's looking for. And he finds that power is not available anywhere here. And that is why he prays to the supreme transcendental divine to come down here with that power. That's the whole idea. So the first world that we'd like to look at some detail, very brief detail though, on page 104. This is the world of subtle matter, subtle physical world. This is a world where everything is beautiful. This is the world of dreams. This is the world which Plato was talking about, of ideal form. By the time these ideal things descend into our world, they lose their perfection. On page 104, last three lines. Whatever is here of visible charm and grace finds there its faultless and immortal lines. Whatever here is charming in our world has its original form in that world, where it is faultless and immortal. All that is beautiful here is there divine. All that is merely beautiful here is in that world divinely beautiful. Figures are there, undreamed by mortal mind, bodies that have no earthly counterpart, traverse the inner eyes, illumine trance, and ravish the heart with their celestial tread, persuading heaven to inhabit that wonder sphere. The future's marvels wander in its gulfs. There are many realities which have not yet appeared on this earth, but they're already there. They just have to precipitate themselves and they will be realized here on this earth. They are all there waiting in that subtle physical world. The future's marvels wander in its gulfs. Things old and new are fashioned in those depths. A carnival of beauty crowds the heights. It's a carnival, a festival of beauty. In that magic kingdom of ideal sight, in its antechambers of splendid privacy, matter and soul in conscious union meet, like lovers in a lonely secret place, in the clasp of a passion not yet unfortunate. It's a beautiful way of putting things here. On this earth, when things begin to manifest themselves, suddenly, because of the consciousness of this earth, things go wrong. There is no perfect expression of anything here. Everything gets marred by the time it reaches the earth consciousness. But there, he says, the soul and the form could meet in secret like lovers without being disturbed by anything. That's what he's saying. Matter and soul in conscious union meet like lovers in a lonely secret place, in the clasp of a passion not yet unfortunate. On the earth, the same union turns out to be unfortunate. They join their strength and sweetness and delight, and mingling make the high and low worlds one. Now, this is a world of great beauty that he sees here, subtle physical world. And if you have access to that world, and if you can reach into that world, you can thrust your hand and produce a mango in a season where mangoes are not found. So Anandji is very fond of mangoes, so when he comes to see me, I just reach out to that world, produce a mango and give it to him. He is very pleased. So all these things, if you have access to those worlds, you can reach out to those things, bring them out and manifest here. These are the worlds of great siddhis. They are available in the subtle physical. But Ashwapati finds that world very, very unsatisfactory. Why does he find it unsatisfactory? You have it on page 113. In that fair, about 4 or 5 pages from the top, in that fair subtle realm behind our own, the form is all and physical gods are kings. The inspiring light plays in fine boundaries. A faultless beauty comes by nature's grace. Their liberty is perfection's guarantee. Although the absolute image lacks, the word incarnate, the sheer spiritual ecstasy, all is a miracle of symmetric charm, a fantasy of perfect line and rule. Everything there as a form is perfect. What is missing? He says, intact it lives, a few lines down the same page, intact it lives of its perfection sure, in a heaven-pleased, self-glad immunity. Content to be, it has need of nothing more. Here was not futile effort's broken heart. exempt from the ordeal and the test, empty of opposition and of pain. There is no opposition here, there is no pain here. It was a world that could not fear nor grieve. There is no fear in that world, there is no grief in that world. It had no grace of error or defeat. See, our world may be an imperfect world, but the one great beauty about this world is that it is an evolutionary world. In Indian Puranas, very often it is said, if God wants to evolve any higher, they have to come down here and be born in the human shape and human form. The human world may be very imperfect, but this is the only evolutionary world. And so, although there is grief here, there is imperfection here, there is also hope for growth here. That is our special privilege. But in this world of perfect forms, of perfect beauty, the poet says, it had no grace of error or defeat. It had no room for fault, no power to fail. If you don't have power to fail, you don't have even power to do any better than what you are. Out of some packed self-bliss, it drew at once its form discoveries of the mute idea and the miracle of its rhythmic thoughts and acts, its clear technique of firm and rounded lives, etc. Page 114, last 4-5 lines. The beautiful body of a soul at ease, like one who laughs in sweet and sunlit groves, childlike she swung in her gold cradle of joy. It's like a minor paradise, a kind of a kid's wonderland. And adults can't go there. SL World, I've heard about SL World, I haven't seen it. My friends from Bombay must have seen it. It's okay once in a while, but you can't make your home there, in the kids' world. Disneyland is wonderful, but you can't make your home there. You need something real, something that grows. So, this subtle physical world with all its beauty, with all its charm, it's like a play world, it's not a real world. Childlike she swung in her gold cradle of joy. The spaces called reached not her charmed abode. She had no wings for wide and dangerous flight. You need wings for wide and dangerous flights. She faced no peril of sky or of abyss. There is no scope for growing, there is no scope for fall. She knew no vistas and no mighty dreams, no yearning for her vast lost infinitudes. And then Sri Aurobindo fixes it in one phrase for all times to come. A perfect picture in a perfect frame. It's a perfect picture in a perfect frame. That's not reality. It's beautiful, you can hang it on the wall, and when you are bored once in a while, look at it, but that's no substitute for reality. So, a perfect picture in a perfect frame, this fairy artistry could not keep his will. So all this artistry, magic of this world did not appeal to Ashwapati after some time. He felt bored. A careless hour was spent in slight bliss. As you go to Salarjung Museum, SL World and so on, Ashwapati went round, looked at all the beautiful things, and he says, our spirit tires of being's surfaces. This is only the surface of being. Transcended is the splendor of the form. It turns to hidden powers and deeper states. So now he looked beyond for greater light. His soul's peak climb abandoning in its rear, this brilliant courtyard of the house of days, he left that fine material paradise. His destiny lay beyond in larger space. So, Ashwapati has looked at this, spent an idle hour, was happy to be there for some time. Then he was tired of this cloying sweetness of this world. There is no issue from that world. There is nothing that the world can offer to us except this magic mango that once in a while you can give to Anandji, and then this world is of no interest, so he goes beyond this world. Then he goes into the world of the vital. Now, if you look at the content page, you will find something very interesting, that the vital worlds are innumerable. The Canto 1 of Book 2 is the world stair. That is the introduction. I spoke to you about where are these worlds from, what do they represent, how does one go there, what are they made of. All these are briefly indicated in Canto 1. Canto 2 is the kingdom of subtle matter. From there, Cantos 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nearly 7 cantos are cantos of the vital level, and something attached to the vital level, very close to the vital level. And notice you have cantos 7 and 8. They are the terrible cantos here. Maybe we should read some lines from those cantos 7. Canto 7 is called the descent into night. Ashwapati looks at the worlds of life, the great activity there, the great hope there, the great zest in that life world. The divine has manifested himself in many forms of life, right from the unicellular amoeba to the dinosaurs to human beings. So there is such a great range of activity. But still, wherever there is life, there is pain. Wherever there is life, there is death. So Ashwapati wonders where all this comes from. And then he suddenly finds that there are worlds of darkness, worlds of ignorance, worlds of almost squalor and dirt, which also have access to this world. They can react to this world, they can send their forces to this world. And these are the terrible worlds that he describes in Cantos 7 and 8. We'll look at a couple of passages from these worlds as well. After that, you have 2 or 3 cantos devoted to the mental world. Take, for example, Canto 10 and Canto 11. And Cantos 12, 13, 14 and 15 are a description of the over-mental worlds. These worlds have already manifested themselves. They are not like the supramental world which had not manifested, but these worlds are already around. And Ashwapati explores those worlds also. And as I have been saying, he doesn't find any ultimate issue in these worlds as well. And that's why he goes to the Divine Mother, the transcendental Shakti. So there are the subtle physical worlds, there are the vital worlds, there are the worlds of darkness, there are mental worlds, there are over-mental worlds. And all these Ashwapati explores. And the most fascinating exploration is the exploration of the vital world. As I told you, Sri Aurobindo depicts these worlds with great care and almost with great love. Because after all, all this is about life, how life manifested, how life grew. All these things he describes from Canto 3 onwards. Now, it's difficult to give you a flavor of these words unless you start at the very beginning and then go on to some select representative passages. But that will not be possible here. But instead I'll give you one or two passages which will give you some idea of what Ashwapati found in these worlds. Page 117, about 12, 13 lines from the top. This world is a world of restlessness. One characteristic feature of life is constant creativity, constantly creating new forms, new desires, new wants, new fulfillments. Nothing satisfies you. This doesn't satisfy, you go for that. That doesn't satisfy, you go to this. Scientists will tell you there are innumerable species of plants, innumerable life forms in this world. There has been so much creativity. Many of these life forms have died, and there is infinite activity going on there. This is all the life world, and Sri Aurobindo gives you some flavor of this tremendous creativity of this world. He says, amid a tedious crawl of drab desires, life world begins with the tedious crawl of drab desires. The centipede that goes, the snake that slides, these are all life forms. Tedious crawl of drab desires. She writhed, a worm mid worms in nature's mud. All these worms that you find in nature's mud, you may not have any use for them. You probably would like to run away from them. But they are all our ancestors, right? If they were not there, this creation could not have come about. So she writhed, a worm mid worms in nature's mud. Then, Titan-statured, took all earth for food. Then life also can take Titan-like shapes, dinosaurs, huge shapes, and which shapes can take the entire earth for food. Then Titan-statured, took all earth for food, ambitioned the seas for robe, for crown the stars. Life has such ambitions. You know, how much would you like to drink? How much would you like to drink? I would like to drink all the oceans. That's the appetite life has. Give me all the oceans, I will drink them up. What would you like to wear? Oh, I would like to wear all the stars in my crown. That is the ambition. That is the zest for life. So he says life has these manifestations. Then Titan-statured, took all earth for food, ambitioned for seas for robe, for crown the stars, and shouting strode from peak to giant peak. And life, when it gets to this form, doesn't walk. It strides from one peak to another peak and asks, clamoring for worlds to conquer and to rule. I have conquered all the worlds. Where are the worlds for me to conquer? That is the appetite for life. All the worlds you gave, already conquered them. Are there any more worlds to conquer? Is the world so small? That is the characteristic feature of life. Always conquest, always gobbling things, always eating, always devouring. This is the flavor of the life world. Clamoring for worlds to conquer and to rule. Like Hitler must have found, is the world so small? I have so many plans. I want to conquer the worlds. Where are the worlds for me to conquer? This is the life instinct. I want to conquer. I want self-aggrandizement. This is what life makes us do. Then, life has also another characteristic feature. What is it? Then, wantonly enamored of sorrow's face, she plunged into the anguish of the depths and wallowing clung to her own misery. There is ambition, and also life also has close association with misery, with sorrow. And wallowing clung to her own misery, in dolorous converse with her squandered self, she wrote the account of all that she had lost, or sat with grief as with an ancient friend. Says, life sits with grief. How? Like an ancient friend with whom you can gossip and exchange everything. So, life always needs this its little dose of sorrow, of sentimentality, of misery. This is the picture of life. Or sat with grief as with an ancient friend, a romp of violent rapture soon was spent. Or she lingered tied to an inadequate joy, missing the turns of fate, missing life's goal. So the varied moments of life he describes here. There are heavens here, there are hells here, there are various kinds of things. But as I said, you can't do all this in 45 minutes. Now, on page 135, there are 3-4 lines I would like to draw your attention to, which explain why exactly Ashwapati is doing this. Why is Ashwapati exploring these words? This is the beginning of the new section on page 135. If you see those, I just would like you to look at the first 4-5 lines. In this slow ascension, he must follow her pace. Even from her faint and dim subconscious start, he says, Ashwapati wanted to go to the very beginning of the growth of consciousness, right from subtle matter. Why did he want to do that? So only can earth's last salvation come. Only then will he be able to figure out what is it that is holding back man's aspiration. What is it that is preventing man from reaching his destination? For so only could he know the obscure cause of all that holds us back and baffles God. What is it that constantly frustrates us here? As I was saying, Ashwapati's quest was about this, that with all the revolutions that have come about, with all the grand, glorious plans that man has for reaching a life of perfection, all the intellectual plans, manifestos, all the scholars sit and draw plan after plan, plan after plan, but nothing works here. Everything fails in this world. Why does this fail? Why is God constantly frustrated in this world? That is Ashwapati's search. That's why he says, so only can earth's last salvation come, for so only could he know the obscure cause of all that holds us back and baffles God in the jail delivery of the imprisoned soul. Why is it that Krishna is always born in the prison house of Kamsa? That's where he is always born. Why is this happening in this world? The secret of this, Ashwapati wants to find out, and that is why he has undertaken this journey. Well, very soon I guess I'll get that slip saying 5 minutes more. I will read a couple of passages from when Ashwapati finds life worlds fascinating, various kinds of life worlds, but he also feels that there is something that is holding back, a kind of unwanted influence constantly filtering through and baffling man's efforts. He descends to get into the worlds of ignorance. And what he finds there is terrible, it's chilling. On page 208, Sri Aurobindo must have written this passage sometime in the 40s. A few months ago, sometime last year I think, I was reading this passage, this very passage, at a seminar, at a conference, and I prefaced this by saying, the passage I am going to read will bring back to your mind the recent events in the capital of this country. That's all I said. They said, and I read this passage. I didn't realize there was a member of the parliament in the audience. So after my talk, he came up to me and said, please give me the page reference. I want to find this. And to find it, how Sri Aurobindo knew that this was going to happen. He said, he didn't write about you. I am just connecting this up. Listen to this. This is one of the things he says about the world of darkness that Ashwapati explores. A capital was there without a state. It had no ruler, only groups that strove. No ruler, only various groups. He saw a city of ancient ignorance, founded upon a soil that knew not light. There, each in his own darkness walked alone. Each walked alone in his own darkness. Only they agreed to differ in evil's paths. So the competition was, each one wants to be evil in his own unique way. So only they agreed to differ in evil's paths, to live in their own way for their own selves, or to enforce a common lie and wrong. Enforce a common lie. If you make a political party, you can enforce a common lie and a common wrong. It's possible. There, ego was Lord. Where ego sat? The same throne on which Shah Jahan sat. There, ego was Lord upon his peacock seat, the peacock throne. Where ego was Lord upon his peacock seat. If ego was the Lord, who was the consort, who was the queen? And falsehood sat by him. Ego was the king, and falsehood was the consort. The falsehood sat by him, his mate and queen. The world turned to them as heaven to truth and God. Once you occupy those gaddis, you become the epitome of wisdom, epitome of everything. So the entire world looks up to them for guidance. Injustice justified by firm decrees. Injustice justified by firm decrees. The sovereign weights of errors legalized trade. When you indulge in this errors legalized trade, you have to use weights, right? What kind of weights you use? But all the weights were false. All the weights were false and none the same. Ever she watched with her balance and a sword, lest any sacrilegious word expose the sanctified formulas of her old misrule. In high professions wrapped self-will walked wide, and license stalked prating of order and right. License, licentiousness. Licentiousness became the minister for art and culture, as it were. That's what happens here. License talked prating of order and right. There was no altar raised to liberty. True freedom was abhorred and hunted down. Harmony and tolerance nowhere could be seen. Each group proclaimed its dire and naked law, a frame of ethics knobbed with scriptural rules, or a theory passionately believed and praised, a table seemed of high heaven's sacred code. The whole description is the rule of night, the rule of ignorance that you find, and another description, page 211 of the same world, about 5 lines from the bottom. Around him, crowded grey and squalid huts, neighboring proud palaces of perverted power. Wherever there are multi-storied mansions around them, it has become a common sight in India that you have these squalid huts, slums. So you have to have a whole world of slums before these multi-storied buildings can come. So this is juxtaposition of these palatial multi-storied buildings and squalid huts is also found in that world of ignorance that Ashwapati explores. Around him, crowded grey squalid huts, neighboring proud palaces of perverted power, inhuman quarters and demoniac wards. A pride in evil hugged its wretchedness. A misery haunting splendor pressed those fell, dun suburbs of the cities of dream life. There life displayed to the spectator's soul the shadow depths of her strange miracle, a strong fallen goddess without hope, obscured, deformed by some dire Gorgon spell, as might a harlot empress in a bouge, nude, unashamed, exulting she appraised her evil face of perilous beauty and charm, and drawing panic to a shuddering kiss twixt the magnificence of her fatal breasts, allured to their abyss and spirits fall. Across his field of sight she multiplied, as on a scenic film of moving plate, the implacable splendor of her nightmare pomps. It's a terrible, terrible picture that Sri Aurobindo can give here. See, very often people who have read something that Sri Aurobindo has said, the glorious dreams he has for mankind, very often quickly come to the conclusion, oh, Sri Aurobindo, what does he know about the ugliness of this world? What does he know about the squalor of this world? What does he know about the cruelty of this world, injustice of this world? He was there for 40 years in Pondicherry, in blissful retreat, lost in some kind of ecstasy, whereas I have faced the world, I know its ugliness, I know its stupidities, and how can you ever think of this great, bright, wonderful future that Sri Aurobindo dreams about if you really know your world? Very impressive oration, right? So you must clap. People who say this must read Savitri, and you will find some of the darkest, some of the ugliest pictures of man, what he is capable of doing to his fellow men, are all found in Savitri. Savitri is not written by somebody who doesn't know his world. The yogi who sits here in Pondicherry knew before the first atomic device was exploded, even experimentally, he knew what this explosion is going to bring. He has mentioned that in a poem, the devastation that nuclear power is going to mean. Because if he is a yogi, you sit here, you can see New York, you can see Paris, as you can see Pondicherry sitting right here. Yogi doesn't have to go there. So Sri Aurobindo, when he talked about the glorious dreams of man, never forgot how limited man is, how beast-like he is, how animal-like he is. He knew all these things. And yet, he dared to hope. He dared to dream. And when he talked about the future, when he talked about the supramental consciousness, he says, nothing on earth can prevent its advent. I am absolutely certain that it is going to come. He says, even if the entire world were to say that I am wasting my time, I won't be deterred. I am absolutely convinced that this dream is going to be one day a reality. And when he said this, he said this in spite of his knowledge of all the limitations of man, his tendency to hurt himself, to hurt his fellow men. Wasn't Sri Aurobindo the very first person who knew what Hitler was? Wasn't he the first statesman who cautioned the whole world at that time? He said, this is a representative of the Asura. This man must be defeated. He came out of his way, went out of his way. And our national leaders at that time thought the British were our enemies and Hitler was our enemy's enemy, and naturally common sense tells you that our enemy's enemy is your friend. But he said he made a token contribution to war effort in those days. He asked all his disciples, whoever could join the war effort, to go and join the war effort. Many people joined as doctors, engineers in the Second World War. And those who know, those people who were here, for the first time, Sri Aurobindo took great interest in detailed commentary about what was happening in the war, as if he himself was conducting the war. That's the kind of interest, keenness he had. So he knew all these things. He knew man's limitations. He knew what Hitler was capable of doing. And yet, he had this firm belief, firm conviction that man will transcend all these limitations. And Savitri is a token of his faith in man and his future. And these two passages, which are, if you really read them, I didn't spend any time explaining them, they're horrid passages. You won't find passages which give you such ugly picture of man anywhere in literature. They're passages of such ugliness. He is also capable of writing sublimely about man and his future, but he is not ignorant about man's limitations. This is the point I wanted to make. Well, there is a lot more one could say, one could do. After this, Ashwapati comes to the world of the mind. There are wonderful passages which talk about reason, its strength, its weaknesses. Then Ashwapati goes above the mind to other worlds and finds there is peace there is joy there, but there is not the power that is needed to solve the problem that confronts mankind. For that, he has to go to the Supreme Divine Mother, the Transcendental Force. I think we'll conclude here today and come back tomorrow and take up Book 3.